Right, bannocks. How do we make bannocks? What we need is 300 grams of flour. You can add a bit of bare meal flour, you get that from Auchmithie, lovely stuff, put that in it as well. Some sugar, bicarbonate of soda, just a teaspoon, pinch of salt. Those are your dry ingredients, and then the wet ingredients, some buttermilk, half a cup of buttermilk and half a cup of milk. And that'll make you 8 bannocks. So, how do I know all this? Because I used to work in a bakery. The bakery was the Sandwick Baking Company, otherwise known as the bake shop. And I worked in the bake shop after I left school. Well, I started 6th year at school in Lerwick and was given an unexpected early exit opportunity. So I had to get myself a job, a full-time job, and hang on, is that working? And I got a job in the Sandwick Baking Company, known as the bake shop, and I was there for a year. So, happy days. A little bit of everything in the dry ingredients. I was told I would be on a decent wage. I get a proper weekly wage. And I'd have to start at 7 o'clock in the morning, just as the bakers were finishing up. And I'd be kind of labouring, just doing odd jobs, helping out with baking and all the rest of it. Pinch of salt, that'll do fine. And this was wonderful. And I started, and my first week I worked and I worked my fingers off. And come the end of the week, I think it was Friday, payday, we all got their pay packets. It was in a little brown envelope, cash back in those days, back in the 60s. And I got my envelope, and everybody went over into a corner. Nobody shared what their pay was or anything. I went over into a corner and opened my envelope, same as everyone else. And I was expecting back then, maybe £9 a week would have been okay. I thought, well, I'll get £9 a week, maybe 10, 11, even £12 a week. But when I opened my pay packet, there was only £6 in it. I couldn't believe it. I thought, I've worked so hard for a whole week just for £6. I thought, I've had enough. This isn't even worth negotiating. So I wore a flour sack as an apron with a 4-inch nail in the back. I just pulled the nail out, folded up my flour sack, put my jacket on, and the other baker said, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going home. I've had enough. Can't be doing with this. I'm not working for nothing." They said, "You can't do that." But I did. I went home. And I thought, oh gee whiz, what have I done? I thought, well, I've blown that, haven't I? And I was standing in the kitchen making my breakfast and trying to plan the rest of my life when there was an almighty screech of a car pulling up outside. And I looked through the door of the kitchen, through the living room, out the window, and in front of the house, this big car, the boss's car, came screeching to a halt. The front end went down, and then it rose up, and the smoke from the tyres billowed past and enveloped the entire car in grey smoke. And it was like some kind of TV talent show, and out of the smoke, a door opened, and my boss, in his white coat, stepped out and came running up to the door. I thought, oh gee whiz, now what? And I let him into the house, and he says, "What's happened, Kenny?" I said, "Well, I've only got £6. I've been working really hard all week just for £6. This is not worth it. I can't work for that kind of money." And he says, "Oh, must have been a mistake, must have been a mistake." He says, "What were you expecting?" I said, "Well, the very, very minimum, £9 a week, which was 50% more." He said, "I can't give you £9 a week. The guy above you that's been working with me for a year or two, he doesn't even earn that." I said, "Oh, well, that's it." that's the end of it. He said, well, no, maybe, he said, well, I'll have a wee think about it. And he thought about it there and then and decided he was going to give me £9 a week. But he told me to finish off my breakfast, enjoy my breakfast, and just come back up to the bake shop when I was ready. And I went back up and I got my £9 a week from then on, and I was there working there for a whole year. And a very, very happy year it was too. I think it was more fun than anything. We got up all sorts of pranks and tricks, and one of the tricks we used to enjoy was, but back in those days, I don't know if it's the case anymore, but flour was quite explosive. Maybe there's an additive or something now, I don't know, but I mean, you still got to be careful if you're in a dusty environment that there's no spark or ignition. But back then, you could take a handful of flour, go up behind some unsuspecting guy, throw the flour in the air so that it made a cloud, took your cigarette lighter, click, bang, and you got a wonderful explosion. All innocent fun back in those days. Another thing we used to do was mix up jelly and put it in one another's boots. And then the jelly would congeal overnight, so when the baker came in the morning he couldn't get his boots on. Great fun. One of my jobs was to clean out the drawers. There was a great big table that we worked at for kneading the bread. And there were big drawers that held currants and sultanas and the likes. And my job was occasionally to empty these drawers of the last few remaining ones and fill it up with fresh sultanas, currants. And one day I had to clean out the currant drawer, and there was quite a bag. There must have been a pound or a couple of pounds of currants that were left over. So I put them in a bag, and rather than them being thrown out, which is what happened, I took them home, and I thought, that'd be useful at home. Went home to make my lunch. And I had a cat, old Timmy, and I left the currants on the table for the afternoon while I went back to work. And when I came back, Timmy had eaten most of the currants. And I don't know what happened, but these things must ferment in your stomach if you eat too many of them. Anyway, I had a drunk cat on my hands for a day or two afterwards, and it took him a long time to recover. But happy days. Back then I had an old car, an old Austin 10, and guys used to play tricks on me with that. And I remember once, guys, they tied the bumper of my car with a piece of rope to the rainwater pipe of the bakery. But my car was so well made that when I drove off, instead of pulling the bumper off the car, it pulled the rainwater pipe off the bakery. But I imagine by now it's been fixed. So those were happy days, but then I thoroughly enjoyed it. But now, 50 years later, about the only thing that I can remember how to make is bannocks. And it's so simple. You just mix your ingredients, dry, wet, together, apply a bit of heat, and that's it, job done. So, we'll just take this and make it into a nice shape comme ça. Plenty of flour, don't be afraid of plenty of flour on it. And then cut it into shapes. Oh, this is a bit weird, isn't it? What are we doing here? Like that. On a flour tray. And get that in the oven. And this is the result of working for a whole year in a bakery as a kid. But admittedly, it was 50 years ago, and I think we're going to need another tray, aren't we? It's a bit hot, so we mustn't burn ourselves on it. And you put that in the oven for 12 minutes. How hot? Very hot. And we'll see when that comes out whether I've learned anything over these 50 years after working in a bakery. Right. Back in 1968-69, the Shetland bakers used to test whether it was baked by just giving it a tap. If it sounded right, it was done. But now, in this high-tech age, we use a spiky thing, and if it comes out clean, oh, perfect. There we are. And surely that is worth anybody's 50% pay rise.